In this video, we're going to take a look at the 11th sector in the S&P 500. And here on this chart here, I have this table. And let's just quickly review what these 11th sector did in 2022. As you can see, for the technology sector, it lost a little bit under 29%. And the healthcare lost just under 4%. And the discretionary lost close to 37%. The financial lost 12.5%. Communication sector lost 39%. The industrial lost slightly under 7%. And the consumer stable lost a little bit over 2.5%. And the energy was the winner for 2022. It gained 58%. The real estate sector lost a little bit over 28.5%. And the material sector lost almost 14%. And the utility lost just a little bit over 1%. Let's take a look at the technology sector first. As you can see on the bottom here is the relative strength chart here. That's just a ratio between the XLK and the S&P 500. So you see that it has been trending down, and that's just indicating that the XLK, the technology sector, has been underperformed relative to the S&P 500. And here we see that there are a few zones that I identify using this composite profile, and these are potential resistance support zone, these blue highlighted area here. So you can see the price came up to this trend line and to this resistance zone and got rejected, came back down and found a little support on this support zone here, and bounce back up to this trend line, or this also this high volume node here. Did a little bit of a back test, but unable to move up above it, and it came back down and broke this zone and came down to this zone and found some support. So this zone right now is around 122. So essentially right now I'm looking for the price to continue to bounce around between these two price zones, and that is between 125 and 122. And looking at this 1 hour chart here, we can see that there has been a couple of these topping type of a candle here. And this is the area that I will be waiting for the price to either come down to this 124 and then come back up and back test this 124 area, 124, 125, and then look for a potential short down to this 123 area. What I'm looking for is the price to continue to chop inside of this range until it is able to break above, and then I'll be looking for a back test coming back down to look for a long setup to possibly swing it back up to this high volume node near the 128, or it comes straight down here and then break this balance area and start moving down. Then I'll be looking for another short entry below this balance area, below this range, for further downside. And looking at the healthcare sector, we see the healthcare sector has been performing relatively with the S&P 500 until just recently it started dipping down. So it's showing a little bit of a underperformance. So we'll see, because right now it's still within this range here, inside of these two price zones. And this zone is somewhere around 136, 137 area. And also down here at the bottom is about 133.5 or 133. And looking at this 1 hour chart here, what I'd be looking for is for the price to come up to this zone, and also essentially this this trend line as well. And I'm looking for it to see would it be able to bounce around and get rejected and pushes it back down to on the downside. And I'd be looking for some sort of short entry once it breaks below this area here. I got a price alert setting up here at 136.5 or so. Looking at the consumer discretionary, as you can see right now, there seems to be a support zone down here at this 127 area, and a resistance zone up here at 133, 134. Notice that it came up to this trend line and got rejected, came down to this 127 here, and then got a little bit of a bounce back up and tested up here at this 133, 134 zone. And also the relative strength It's been underperformed the relative to the S&P 500 until recently. It seems to be flat, so it seems to be now performing pretty much similar to the S&P 500 performance. And if we switch over to the 1 hour chart here, you can see that it is bouncing up against this resistance zone here, up here near this 133.5. So what I be watching here, I got a price alert to set up, and I'll be watching for price to bounce around, and then if it come down here, I'll be looking at a little bit of a short setup and watching for the price to come back down to this 127 area. I'm essentially still looking for this range bound type of price action until otherwise, if it break above, then I look for retracement back down here to this 133. Then I'd be looking for a long setup to swing it back up to this composite high volume node near 140. Looking at the financial, we see the financial has been outperformed the S&P 500. And right now, we essentially are looking for the price to see what it come back up to this resistance zone near the 36 area and get rejected and pushed back down to this 32. Because right now, I'm still looking for the price to bounce around inside of this zone here. And if it could break above this 36 area, then I'd be looking for a possible retest. Then look for a setup to go long on this, play it up to this 38. But for now, I am still looking for the possibility of the price come up to this resistance zone and get rejected. And if we take a look at this 1 hour chart here, I'm basically looking for the price to come back up and see would it get rejected, then look for setup to play it back to the downside and back to this area here at this 32.5. Now, if it could get up and break above this zone here, then I look for a back test here down to this 36 area, then look for a long setup to swing it back up to this 38 area. Looking at the communication sector, you can see that the communication sector recently seems to be a little bit outperforming the S&P 500. And right now it has came down to this lower area, this support area somewhere around 45, and bounces back up to this 52 area. And right now I'm looking forward to see would it come back up to this 52, 53 area once again and see would it be able to break above that. And if it breaks above that this zone here, then look for a little bit of a back test and see would it get back up to this 64 area here. You're essentially looking for a long setup and swinging it up to this resistance zone up here near 64, 63 area. And if it come back down to this zone here, then I'll be watching for a little bit of a setup again for a long setup to swing back up to this 52 area. Look at this weekly chart of the industrial. We see that the industrial, it came down to this pre-pandemic high and got a nice bounce off of this 83 level. Came all the way up at 103. Then right now it seems to be pulling back and back testing this level here somewhere around this 97. So if it could pushes up to this 103, I'll be watching it to see if it could come up, get above this 103 and into this 106, 107 area. And if we take a look at the daily chart here, we see that it has been outperformed the S&P 500. And so if it comes back down to this 97, then I would be looking for some sort of a long setup for it to swing back up to this 103. Looking at the consumer stable here, you can see that recently the consumer stable has been outperforming the S&P 500 on this relative strength chart here. And also it came up to this 77 resistance zone and pulled back and found support near the 74 area. Now it appears that it is trying to push back up to this 77 area. If it could break this resistance, then get above the 78, then I'd be watching for a possible, back test into this 77 area for a long setup, and then swing it up to this potential resistance zone up at the 80 level. Looking at this weekly chart of the XLE, the energy sector, we notice that there is a resistance zone up here near the 94 area, and also another one near 90. And we notice that recently it seems to be finding support at this support area near the 83.50, 84 area. And there is a potential support down here near the 79. So on this weekly chart, we notice that it also been forming a higher low and also higher high here. Now, if we switch over to the daily chart, we also see that the energy sector has been outperformed the S&P 500 last year at the end of last year. But recently, it seems to be pretty much flat relative to the S&P 500. So what I'll be watching for on the energy sector is to see would it be able to come up to this 89, 90 area and see would it break above it and then do a back test and then push it back up to this 94 area. That'd be essentially looking for a long setup to look for a swing long up to the 94 area. Now, if it come up and unable to get above the 90, and instead it pushes back down, and I'd be watching for a potential short setup to come back down to this 84 area and retest this potential support area. Looking at the real estate sector, as you can see, the real estate came up to this 40 area, this potential resistance zone, and got rejected and pushed down to this support zone here, somewhere between 37 and 38 area, and broke down from it recently, and now it's coming back up to backtest this area, between 37.5 and 38 level. So right now, the real estate sector kind of perform flat relative to the S&P 500. So on this 1 hour chart here, I'm basically looking for the real estate sector to see would it come back below this 37.50, dip below this zone here and pushes back down to the 35.50 area. Since you're looking for a potential short here, if it could bounce up and be watching for it to come up to this 40 area, then look for a potential setup to swing it back down to this zone here, somewhere between this 38 and 37.50 area. Looking at the material sector, see the material sector is pretty much flat relative to the S&P 500. And recently we saw the price came down to the 77 area and found support and bounced back up over the $80 level right now. Notice that there is a resistance level that it broke down from, and that's up here at this 84 area. So right now, basically looking for a price to see would it be able to bounce back up to this high volume node near the 82.25 or so, and pushes up to this 84. So switching over to the 1 hour chart, and here's what I'm looking for right now is to see would it be able to come back down to this zone and present some sort of setup and get a nice push up to this 82.35, this high volume node, and see would it be able to push up to the 84. So I'll be watching for a price to pull back to this zone and look for some sort of long setup to swing it back up to this 82, this high volume node, and trail it up to 84. Now, if it comes dip below and it pushes back down to this 77 area here, then I'd be looking for some push up and see would I get a a long type of setup and pushes back up to this 80 zone and then possibly play back up to this high volume node. So I'm essentially looking for the material sector on the long side here. Watch for a pullback, back test this zone and look for a long setup to push up, or pull back here and back test this zone and look for a long setup and targeting this 82 area, this high volume node. And look at the utility sector for the S&P 500. You can see that the utility came all the way down from its high back down to the 61, 62 level. and found support, and then now it bounces back up to this 73 area, and it seems like been bouncing, chopping around between 69 and the 71. So if we switch over to this daily chart here, we also notice that utility has outperformed the S&P 500 until recently. It is showing a little bit of underperformance now. So for the near term, I'd be watching for utility to see would it dip below this zone here. And this zone is somewhere between the 70.5 to 70 area. So if we could get a dip below this zone, look for a setup for it to swing back down to the 68 area. Now, if it continue to push up, I wait until it get up to this potential resistance zone up here near this 73 area and look for a rejection and look for a short setup to push us back down to this 70 area, this resistance zone, and possibly lower and eventually get down to this 68. So those are the 11 sector of the S&P 500. And be sure to smash that thumbs up to help me promote this video. Thank you for watching and stay safe.